Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission for November 10th, 2021. I feel like that we've been kind of waiting for this day for a while now. I know I have because, of course, I've been tracking the astrological transits, especially since the equinox for during this time. And this is a big deal today. And we've been leading up to this point. So welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. If this is your first time stopping by, thank you for being here. Thanks for checking us out. And as always, whenever you interact with this content through your subscriptions, through that like button, that makes a big difference, strangely enough. And what else? Yes, commenting, sharing, all of those things that count as interaction. It really does support the work. And if you want to support this work financially, you can go to the link for Subscribe Star in the description box below, and you can support this channel and all of these transmissions and reports for $3 a month right now, with specific subscriber only content coming very, very soon. Things are slowing down a little bit now, which, is coming at a really good moment, because I think that the ability to really slow down right now with some energy with Mercury and Mars that really has us wanting to do the opposite, right? To express and to process information and to also act on things, right? That's Mars in a nutshell, is acting on things, and certainly acting on our own ego-based interests, our own impulse to be, and our own subjective experience. That is a big part of Mars. But what we are really being tasked with, I would say even today, is to really get a handle on what it is that we are feeling, what our intuition is bringing towards us, and how we can stabilize ourselves either emotionally with the moon in Aquarius, and of course Saturn being the ultimate stabilizing force in the face of and in cross purposes with what is coming through with Scorpio. So we'll go over all of that astrology through this transmission. Let me get out of studio mode here. So, we'll go over a little bit about the space weather. Of course, it's, for the most part, it's nothing like it was last week. That was, in fact, a very, I can't get over how much of that was a very rapid restructuring and reorientation energetically. There was a very large solar flare that was a coronal mass ejection as well, but it was at a 90-degree angle with Earth, so it's not heading right towards us. But we're going to look at the Schumann and see that even though it might not be faced directly at Earth, it's because of the magnetic fields around us and the sun and the whole interplanetary magnetic system. It still can impact us even if it's not directly faced at us, and that's a really important point, I feel like, to keep in mind. So how is everyone? How have your dreams been? How have you been feeling? Are you in a position today to really slow yourself down and give yourself some really quiet moments to go very deeply in and to not close yourself off from what is, what is at the depth of all of us right now. So we have this capacity to really feel into it, and also to transmit it, right? To allow it to come out and be expressed through our voice. The sun is our consciousness. It is very ego-based, but it really is about finding our voice and allowing the expression of who we are to surface. And so these things are really interacting with each other today, but we do have that square to Saturn with the moon in Aquarius. So giving us a sense of not detachment totally, but that has been coming through as a message. If you've been here and you're on, a consistent, journey with this, with these transmissions in general, then you know that having a sense of detachment, being able to look at the very broad view right now is really, really essential, because the Scorpio realm is so feeling based that we can be consumed in it, and we can find ourselves sinking into it. And without the ability to swim, this can be a very dangerous place to be. And with the Draco activation involved with where Mars and Mercury are today, the ability to have a sense of detachment and almost aloofness, right? To be able to feel the full picture without becoming completely immersed in all of the feels of it is going to really, I think, I really do feel like that is going to work in our favor right now. So the tendency with the Draco signature, if you have Draco starseed points in your chart, or it's something that you resonate with, even if you don't, it's still going to be impacting all of us very strongly. The ability to really see into the future, right? To have a sense of that serpent medicine that does allow for us to heal. It allows for us to tap into the full range of experience, but it also can lead us to act out of self-preservation, to exploit, to take advantage, and to be very predatory in some ways, without any emotional attachment, right? It's just very singularly focused on what is it that I want, and I will do whatever I need to do to get it. That is the dark side. And that has been the main MO of the Draco for such a long time. So if you find that you have Draco starseed points in your chart, if you know that because you've had a reading with me or anybody else that does starseed astrology, you'll know that this is kind of your role is really to be able to hold this resonance without having it consume you, and to not allow yourself to be influenced by others. That's the other thing about this, and I've been very strongly advocating for a sense of discernment and protection energetically, because this type of transit can really have us being strongly influenced by visions, by feelings, by intuitive knowing that's not really ours, and to be influenced in a very deep subconscious way as well. So this does require a level of mastery, because when we have 1111, that portal opens, it's opening right now. And so right now is our ability to really stabilize ourselves as we're about to walk through this. And if we are not stable, then we really run the risk of being getting lost, really getting lost, or being used as a tool for someone else's agenda. So it's really, really important that we take this to heart today. So I will look into, we're going to look at the space weather just real quick, because I like pointing out these things that correlate with each other. So I'm checking in with the chat right now. Very super vivid dreams the past few nights. I feel very powerful this morning. Yeah, I feel very powerful too. It's very potent. I had some very clear insight into with my dream state last night as well. It was very heavy this morning. And the reading we're going to go over, the intuitive part of this transmission, is a warning against against foolishness. That is the word that has come out many times. And there's a distinct difference between the fool and being foolish, right? Yes, feeling very power regeneration after trying times. Yes, I feel like that some people, their trying times are still extending, and other people are definitely feeling, getting a sense of their own power as a result of that as well. So that's a really good insight as well. There is a regeneration, right? There is access to something very, very deep that we have the ability to really coincide with today, right? And we have an incredible system set up, this geometric pattern in the cosmos that is going to allow us to stay stabilized as we energetically and intuitively go into these spaces. And tomorrow with the 11/11 portal, we're also going to have the first quarter moon squaring the sun. And again, this is going to be a crisis in action. What exactly are we going to do? And in this moment, and of course we'll talk about a lot of this tomorrow too, but in that moment, we're going to be tasked with, of course, plunging ahead into the unknown, like pushing aside that which has darkened our path for so long and being able to move forward. But we also are going to feel, I think, in that fixed square that we're having with the moon in Aquarius and the sun in Scorpio, of being able to still stay open and acknowledging the input that we could be getting from the collective as a whole to let us know that we're on the right path, right? It's very easy with the sun, wherever the sun is, to get kind of hyper focused on what that is, because it represents our ego's expression and the passion moving through us. So we can get very focused on that. And of course, that makes sense because the sun is the center of our solar system. It is the furnace that gives us everything we need on this planet. But of course, there's no life without the moon as well. And to think about that archetypally is there's no life without the balance of these polarities within us. And this square will provide enough tension for us to, not forget and to be aware of that there are, it's not just our own action, right? We have to be open to receiving and being aware of that which will point us in the right direction, give us a sense of, it's like a white dove, right? The white dove from the story of Noah, plus probably numerous other stories, narratives, mythologies where the dove represents peace and hope, right? And there is a white dove carrying a message that will be brought to our awareness, and it will be important to really not shy away from that discomfort, but with the first quarter square, tomorrow, but to really feel into the necessity to, yes, act and move forward and to plunge ahead, but also have the capacity to know when we're on the right track. And it's not about choosing one way or the other. It's about finding where we grow in the midst of the discomfort when you have these two aspects coming together at cross purposes at a 90-degree angle, right? That's what the square represents. And with fixed squares, they are, oh boy, they're very strong in their position. So when they meet, there's a tendency to just crumble, just to crumple up like you would if you were in an accident where one person T-bones the other. Very strong. And so it's not going to really throw us off anywhere. And it's certainly not going to be malleable enough to change us. It is just going to be very uncomfortable. And boy, we can grow so much from these squares, especially squares like the sun and the moon squaring each other. They mark very definitive moments along the path. And especially because we're going to have a full moon lunar eclipse this month, there are aspects about what we're letting go of, what is being released, what is naturally ending in order for a new phase to begin. This is all part of the full moon dynamic, but it will be distorted. It will not be fully expressed. And so we really do need to be aware of our own capacity to discern and to really discern, right? It's very easy to get kind of caught up in the flow and the intensity with Mars involved in Scorpio as well, this plunging ahead into the unknown, to get really into the intensity and the things that are coming up to the surface, the secrets, the things that have been buried, the aspects that have been hidden for so long within us, and as it's expressed out there. So very intense times. And for as much of a bad rap that Saturn gets, it really does provide the skeletal structure. And with the moon, it's going to stabilize our emotions in a very important way today, because otherwise we could find ourselves really getting, influenced and pulled into the depths very strongly. So let's get into a couple things here. I just want to show, this is just real quick here. Let's see. So we'll pop over to this right now. So one thing I want to just show you. First, we're going to go over to the Schumann just really quickly. It's good to be able to connect into what's going on here in real time. So we had this huge solar flare that happened yesterday around 5 p.m. Universal Time. So if you look here, this is about the time frame this solar flare left the sun and created a coronal mass ejection. Pretty significant amount of plasma leaving. And remember what I said, it was at like a 90-degree angle from Earth, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact on the whole magnetic field. Now, as you see, there's not much going on around that time. The Schumann has been, in terms of its amplitude, pretty mellow, pretty quiet at 17 Universal Time, 1700 or 5 p.m. But what is really striking to me is the, hold on one second here. There we go. Get rid of that ad. Is that at that time you can see that the quality of it started to be very erratic just beforehand. And so it was almost like you could feel all of the agitation in the sun, all of the disconjuncts in the magnetic field of the sun right before it popped off that solar flare. And so the quality of our field started to become very erratic. And as you see, it did this for a number of hours into this morning as well. And of course, the frequency is not really doing too much. I mean, it's certainly moving, but it's not these massive drops or very, very drastic changes. But the quality of the field definitely changed at the time of that eclipse. I really have eclipse on the brain right now. It started to become very erratic around the time that the solar flare, but there's no change in amplitude really, not too much. Now, there have been some changes, like you can see the yellow line here had really started to increase in amplitude, but nothing else really. So just dots to put together. It's just important to observe sometimes without coming to any necessary conclusions. It's a big part of science, is just the observation and the collection of data. And eventually the analysis. So curious if anybody has any insight. Remember, we've talked about the quality, the amplitude, and the frequency in terms of sound, right? And the quality is the tone. The quality of the tone became very erratic. And so if you sing or play a wind instrument or any kind of instrument, you know that you need to have, the strong, clear tone is what everybody is going for. And when it becomes erratic and is all over the place, I mean, it's shaking, right? And so we can probably deduce at this point that it did shake the magnetic field of our planet when that solar flare was released. But there is a CME that is scheduled to come to us, but again, it's not facing us. So how that's going to impact the field when it finally arrives within some range of us is yet to be determined. So I'm curious to see how that goes. So if we look at it, you can even see it here. The X-ray, right? It goes way up yesterday when it was pretty just chilling and it was shot up. So there's this solar flare right there. And then you can see it here as well. This is the magnetic effect and the angle, the phi angle of the magnetic field. You can see that becoming very erratic at the same time. The speed of the solar wind is increasing as well. So, and you can even see that the geomagnetic effect yesterday started to increase, just like this here. Started to increase. So, but nothing major, nothing like it was last week, that's for sure. So we'll pop over to the reading here after I bring there we go. All right, there we go. So before we get into the transmission, we will definitely ground ourselves here because this is okay. first let's do that. I don't even want to get into it until we've taken a moment here to really ground ourselves. So deep diaphragmatic breath in. Oops. You know, remember that what we're doing here is the diaphragm is opening and contracting, and it's pulling on the lungs. So it's fanning down and out at the bottom of our lungs and opening our lungs to draw air in. So deep breath in and release. Allowing the sound of the bowl to really ground us. This is tuned into that, to our root chakra. This bowl is at C major. So it really does allow us to actually ground ourselves with that. So now that we're ready to receive this part of the transmission, let's get right into it. So, the Fool. So this is why I bring up the foolishness, because we have the Fool reversed as our causal factor. So, you know, the Fool is the beginning and the end, of course. It is the Alpha and the Omega. It is represented by the 0 in the tarot, and is really about a state of true innocence and perfect state of freedom. Right? It is the beginner's mind. It is responding to the present moment. So it's ultimately in a lot of ways where we want to get to when we are going to embark on anything in terms of energetics and manifestation and just our spiritual path. We want to be able to connect into this place because it's responding to the present moment outside of time and space. And it also is the animal soul, which is us, in perfect harmony with our spirit. So this is the moment. This is, and the moment and the archetypal representation of the perfect experience of being a spiritual being in a material experience is the Fool. Always trust your gut, always trust your instinct, always trust your innate. These are all things that are referenced by the Fool, because again, it is outside of time and space. It's in the present moment, and it's in perfect harmony with our own spirit and our own soul and our own immortal self, our spiritual nature. So this is true innocence. The reversal is quite interesting right now. So we talked a lot yesterday, especially moving into the transmission itself. The intro to yesterday had a lot to do with, being able to protect our energy, to know the difference between ourselves and other in terms of an energetic presence, to be able to recognize when something may be trying to attach itself, insert itself. And the Draco aspect is a big part of this, right? Because you can just siphon energy off of people and as a result of you're not able to cultivate it for yourself. And this is, the cultivation is really what the power of our Kundalini represents, is this ability to heal, the ability to allow our container to be full of that which is infinite, right? And be able to create from this place as well, and to allow ourselves to be moved by and directed by what our passion, right? Oftentimes people conceptualize, I need to find my passion. And yes, to a certain extent, but it's really about connecting to your passion and letting that guide you to the expression of that passion, which is a lot of the fifth house energy. Okay. It's mostly what the fifth house represents, our ability to connect in. So when you are not able to connect into this place from a pure, perfect harmony as the Fool represents in its upright, there's a sense of recklessness that comes along with this, and a lack of responsibility. It's careless, and covers, it's a carelessness that will cover ourselves or the individual with kind of this artificial madness, right? There is a certain madness that comes along with the fool, right? Because it is the fool. It is the beginner's mind. And so there is a sense of madness because it's related to not only this mercurial energy, but Uranus as well. And Uranus can seem like the Mad Hatter, right? It can seem very mad and very unhinged. And that's just because it is the representation of seeing things from a completely different vantage point, which allows for a much more broad and much more complete view, right? And Uranus ruling Aquarius is able to tap into the full nature of the collective, either from a human, the human collective in society, or the galactic collective, universal collective. It is the power that is able to move through a cohesive geometric pattern. So if we look at Capricorn as the unfolding of that fractal geometry in real time, right? This as the matrix of our current reality. Aquarius represents the power that is able to move through that and the power that is able to impact that, right? Just like if you use like crystal grids, for instance, it's the power of our consciousness that is able to be amplified by that grid. Or if you have seen any of those videos where people take magnetic filaments and expose them to certain frequencies and watch them literally change their shape. Or the most accessible, I think, version of this is the hidden messages of water, where you see the change in the water crystals as a result of the intention, either words or just thoughts, right? So Aquarius nature and Uranus in particular can seem mad, but it's because you see things from a perspective that it's not in our exclusively material reality. So in this reversal, it's really suggesting a lot of carelessness and distrusting our instincts. That's another thing too, is like not actually trusting our innate, not trusting our gut, trusting something artificial. And there's a fear of a standstill that happens when this card is reversed as well. And so again, they will create chaos, will create artificial madness in order to cover up for the fear of being in stillness. And it's in that singular 0 point that we want to be. But when you don't identify that as something that allows for perfect innocence and perfect state of freedom, then you will try to do things that will fill the void, thinking that you're actually making progress or doing something. But in fact, it's reckless and it's irresponsible. So this part of the transmission, and I felt this very strongly when I first got up this morning and going into the meditation based on my own dream state, and certainly just tapping into the collective, that there is this either how do I put this? There is kind of this influence of this artificial recklessness or distrusting of the 0 point. And this is why the moon in Aquarius today with Saturn, I feel like, is really saving us and giving us the ability to have that 0 point experience within our very own self. And Saturn to stabilize it at the same time, because otherwise we could find ourselves being very careless with our energy, right? This is where we manifest from, is our own seat of creation. And we know, if we've been here many times this week, if we've been consistent with these transmissions, then you know that this creating a sacred space has been the primary focus. And without that sacred space that has been created, we are so easily led astray. And this is a real warning about this. And it's also a reflection of what may be happening collectively, as opposed to any one individual person right now. So coming into the moment is this kind of, this lack of really trusting our instinct, and a carelessness and artificial chaos that is meant to throw us off, because we don't think that the 0 point is actually, true freedom. which obviously is not true. So as we move into the next position, right? Here is our adjustment or justice, right? I mean, this is something that many people are like, waiting on pins and needles for. When is it going to come? Well, we know that there's already been 3 indictments in the Durham investigation, so we know that things are actually happening. But when it comes to a justice and adjustment in an archetypal way, Venus in Libra and a very strong Saturnian element. We just talked about this yesterday with the 3 of Swords being that sorrow, being that false illusions, being broken away that we have to give up, and having a very painful experience of it. Now that's at a much larger level because we have the Fool and then we have the Adjustment. This is one of the major arcana cards or trump cards. So this is adjustment or justice in its most fundamental form. And as you can see, it's very structured, and even though you see spheres all around, the scales of justice have these really distinct chains that are holding it in place, and there is a very strong structure. And this sword of justice is very much just like in the card from the 3 of Swords. It is down and it is planted. There's no going anywhere from this. So when we have adjustment as the heart of the matter, right? The axis point between our external experience and our own energetic axis of power. The number 8 is a divine intervention, right? So this is the balance of contrasts and the harmony between reality and instinct. So again, just keep in mind, if we're coming from a place where we're not trusting that instinct, or it's artificially, the chaos is artificially created, or there is a sense of recklessness about our actions, as opposed to really getting into the 0 point of the beginner's mind. And then we come to this moment where there is, in fact, the harmony between reality and instinct, and a realization of cause and effect, uncompromising honesty. All of these things are part of the Libra and justice archetype, right? Because there's no explaining away where the scales are balanced, right? Uncompromising honesty. So the principle of activity completes itself, right? So that's the sun. There's Mars, and in some ways Mercury, although Mercury does span the full range of masculine to feminine, or yin to yang, right? Action and reception. So the principle of activity completes itself with the passivity of inner reflection. So the adjustment is the balance between them, right? And it's an active process, even though it's got this very Saturnian nature to it. So wisdom is based on action, but we can't take the action without the balance point of the inner reflection. So this card really is the priestess and the magician coming together and creating harmony between reality and instinct. So true conscious action comes from realization, right? And this is why being able to deeply connect to some sort of higher inspiration, to be able to go deeply within ourselves, is going to be the true inspiration for conscious action. So this is at the heart here. So justice is here, and a major adjustment is right here at the heart of us, and at the heart of what's going on externally as well. Uncompromising honesty. Okay, now there's a lot of reversals in this reading. So the 6 of Keys and Adjustment are the only real ones that are not reversed, other than the animal messages. They're never reversed. So where are we gathering our power from? So the increscent moons, the 6 of Keys, here's our galactic center, right? The sculptor at work. So we're working diligently. Our efforts are combined with external circumstances. And this is about being diligent and working and being ready to receive something as a result of our work. This is the waxing moon, which we are technically in. We're in a waxing moon. So this is where we're drawing our power from. It's very important that we we understand what it is we're putting into form. It's one thing to work diligently and have our efforts combined with external circumstances, very similar to what this adjustment card is representing, right? The balance between reality and instinct, same thing. But this is very much about working to create that in a very material and physical way. The keys are the nuts and bolts of our lives, the physical material world, and actually working. So we have to be aware of what it is and we are working. We're definitely working. So what we're working towards is something that has to we have to be very real about, because what we're going to find here is we're working and we're working and we're working and we're putting things into form and we're being diligent, and the moon is waxing, which means it's getting bigger and becoming more abundant, right? And our efforts are combining with the external circumstances, right? We are starting to actually see the fruits of our labor, right? Speaking of Virgo, but, and we come up, right? We draw our power up from this place to meet the heart of the matter, which is justice and adjustment and the balance between reality and instinct. But remember our causal factor, the Fool, is on its head right now. So, that is because here we go, the Seven of Forces. This is our Libra card again, but it's also reversed. So in terms of our conscious attention, where we're releasing our power, it's not very balanced. That is what this is representing. There is something out of balance in terms of our attention, our conscious awareness, what our contractual arrangement is or obligations. We've talked about Juno yesterday, about how it's a closed system, just like Libra. It's a closed system, right? It's two scales, and transfiguration absolutely is part of this, right? It's not that we can't transfigure ourselves or what we're putting into these two. They have to be in order to be balanced, unless they're balanced going into the scales, but it's a closed system. You have to work with what's there and what has been already manifested and created in order to balance it out. This is our attention and awareness is out of balance collectively. We're and this is not because we're doing anything wrong, but what it does seem like, and I think many of us can vouch for this, is that we have been embroiled in very difficult situations that have caused a loss of clarity in a lot of ways. And so we need to taking action. The forces are action. And the creative element, the wands or the fire element, take action. And there's action needed to untie what has gotten all tangled up and keeping us out of balance. It's really important that we realize that justice is not the same as revenge or anger, right? Those are very Aries types of energies, aren't they? And those are in opposition to Libra, because when we act out of our own impulses, there is anger and there is a tendency towards maybe revenge in order to balance to get what we want and to feel balance within ourselves. But that is not, we just bring more karma back to ourselves when we engage in revenge, right? And sometimes when there are things that are so absolutely abhorrent and out of balance, and that it's a total affront to natural law and all that is good, we want revenge, right? That is a natural thing that comes up, but we do not want to continue to create karma for ourselves by engaging this energy. And we're going to find today that the moon comes into a sextile with Chiron in Aries. So there's going to be some massive disappointment, but if we can really, really kind of see that without getting pulled into the feeling of it, we could really find ourselves healing. Again, there's so many healing opportunities right now. And this is about bringing balance back to our life. So we might be working very diligently. We might even feel into the heart of the matter, which is this justice. But the fact that that the Fool is turned on its head, this recklessness and a sense of not trusting our instinct at all and being in tune with natural law, we're out of balance. Something about our awareness is out of balance and our conscious attention. And it's not that we can't do anything about it. And as we go into the guidance point of this, there'll be some, you can see it right here. The Six of Forces that we had yesterday, now reversed. So losing power and being aware of it. And of course, the dog has come back. Who are we serving? So these are important questions to be asking. The Eight of Discs, look at that. That was here yesterday, and now it's reversed. So again, our prudence is really being tested. Our patience is really being tested, especially with such a massive adjustment in a way that can really move some things around, right? Especially if we've been working very hard and really gathering our own power from a place of working very diligently towards something, whatever it is. The Prudence Reversed, it's kind of blowing me away right now to see this. This is where again, foolish on both sides here, with the Fool reversed and this card reversed is very clear. We may be very careful with the small details, right? Getting very hyper focused on those things, but very foolish when it comes to the big picture when this card is reversed and we're unable to come to a conclusion, right? Where we're just kind of like, considering and kind of, endlessly analyzing things and being very meticulous and kind of control freaky. That's the thing about Virgo, wanting to control the situation and then doing nothing about it when you're just like hemming and hawing about it. Sometimes this can show a hoarding, right? Or a stagnation, because it is meant to be a time of patience and to act at the right time. And we can really find ourselves being very foolish with the very big things, okay? And unable to come to real conclusion, and certainly having our patience being tested because we are working so diligently. And I think that that's going to really throw people off. With eclipse season, like just around the corner, it's just so important to keep this in mind, that it's not going to be everything that it seems like. There's going to be so much distortion in terms of what we are here to let go of. And even with the best intentions, we still have to be realistic about this. So very careful with the little small things, getting hyper fixated on the details. But when it comes to the big picture, foolishness. Oh, so much foolishness. And I'm not suggesting any one person or group of people is going to connect to this in particular. It's just, this is a warning. This is a warning of where it could go. And these intuitive readings are a snapshot energetically of what is. Right? Doesn't mean it can't change. And this is why the guidance cards are so important, because it shows us that we are surrounded all the time with all of these just different ways of being assisted. There's so much assistance here in from our own higher selves, from ancestors, from guides, however you look at these things, our own synchronicity. We're surrounded by every opportunity is that we have to learn is here, but we have to actually take advantage of it. So the Queen of Scrolls also reversed, and the Tortoise. So we are growing and working diligently. I think that there could be a real disconnect with whatever the channel of information or deep understanding has been, or being just disconnected from the information or the understanding in general, right? The Queen of Scrolls being reversed, and the Tortoise, slow and steady wins the race, my friend. And you're too fragmented to do whatever it takes to get grounded. And the Queen of Scrolls being reversed, I mean, total fragmentation in terms of our deep knowing. And this is why it's so, frankly, dangerous in some ways to have this Mercury-Mars conjunction in Scorpio at a Draco activation and not be grounded, because there's a lot of frustration. And again, the concept of revenge and anger when we're not seeing the fruits of our labor necessarily, and maybe wanting to hoard some things or act out of stagnation, right? There's that Fool reversed again, not being comfortable with the 0 point from where we actually are able to create from, and then acting acting out as a result of that discomfort of being still. So we've, and then it leads to not being patient. So we are working diligently. And I know that it's frustrating when you find yourself like, I'm just working my ass off every day. And I seem like that there's nothing to show for it, or, you find yourself being, maybe your sculpture like breaks, or maybe there's a crack in it, or maybe you have to start over, or maybe it's not as great as you thought. You have a vision, but what comes out is not exactly what you want. If I've said this many times, but we're going through the whole Harry Potter series. And if you think about when they're practicing with their wands, especially practicing certain things like creating things, or doing any kind of shape shifting or whatever, until you get good at it, it turns, it's like a distortion of what it is you're actually trying to do. And this is why, again, it's so important to be able to focus, right? And to be able to clear your mind, and to keep your mind clear and protected from any kind of influence. And Scorpio, it's so easy to be influenced by the full range of what we're producing in our interactions, because the power of the symbolism is still very much there, even if we don't know. And there is a major adjustment. I mean, there's no getting around the justice, but if we are coming into it from a place that is just not very clear, or has a lot of baggage attached to it, then yeah, we're not going to really be patient, and we might want to act out. And so again, slow and steady wins the race. Be willing to do what it takes to get grounded. It's easy to succumb to a false sense of urgency. And there's a lot of urgency that comes about in Scorpio, because it's like the urge to merge, right? It gets the yearning to come into union with other, and the alchemical potential that comes initially from that urgency. And it's easy to succumb to a false sense of urgency that's not really urgent or dangerous. It's just either a projection, or, we are influenced so much all around us. I mean, the mainstream media is a great example of this. The fear porn is a false sense of urgency, and then we end up creating as a result of that. And if you want to keep yourself from doing this, it's important that you get grounded, right? We talked about that Earth Star chakra. It's very important, because the Earth will always lead you. The planet herself will always lead you, or give you the stabilization that you need, even if what's happening around you is chaotic. So, and it is chaotic. I feel like that we really need to be reminded that it's so easy for us to be separated from our higher self, and to be separated from a deep wisdom. It's and it comes from our energy just being, spiraling around so much. And if we are in a stage where we're really truly creating and manifesting and diligently working, but we're coming from a place that is very disrupted and fragmented, we have to accept what we're going to create as a result of our energy. And this is not new. This is something we've been talking about now for a while, and now it is coming into a very, very distinct awareness, and how important it is that we are grounded, so that we are not shook up, and how important it is that our emotions and our feelings and our intuition, like that we are as still as a calm lake, so we can get an accurate reflection, because the full moon will not be an accurate reflection, not at all. So we have to do it now so that when the full moon lunar eclipse does happen, we are not fooled, or we are not taken off track, because that is a very distinct possibility. Eclipses were never good omens, right? And it's not because the ancient people were just so childlike that they didn't understand what was happening. That's just absurd. That is absurd to think about ancient Sumerian culture and the Mayans and all of these other ancient cultures that had access to, mathematics and astronomy, and then to be like, but they were too childish and naive to understand what an eclipse was. They knew exactly what it meant, and that's why it was not always a good omen, because they knew that was distorting the full range of that energy. So I'm not saying it's something to be afraid of and you go back in your cave and you hide, but we have to be aware of this. So the dog. Your loyalty and faithfulness is misplaced by serving too many masters. Oh man, I wonder why our balance is thrown off right now if our attention and energy is just scattered. Oh, it's scattered all over the place. Whom do you serve, right? Whom do you serve? That's a good question you should be asking yourself. And that's important because if we're scattered, we're going to feel like a loss of power, right? The Six of Forces reverse, loss of power. Feeling a significant loss of power, right? This was in the reading yesterday, right? In a position of where we gather our power and where we find our personal power. It's reminding us, right? This showing us we could be emotionally reactive. Life literally turned upside down, right? And the Seven of Forces, that's definitely life turned upside down, potentially in a way that has to do with justice and a sense of contractual obligation. And that closed system of Juno in the very last degrees of Sagittarius, right? We actually have to maintain what it is that we have, that we are creating out of meaning, right? The galactic center, sorry. I was just having a moment there. The galactic center, right? So life turned upside down. Some people can give up. This is where depression comes in because we're losing power. We're leaking it all over the place. Again, whom do you serve, right? Whose interests are you actually serving with your energy? So it's time to tap into your true value if you don't want to find yourself really angry and revengeful about the adjustments that are being made right now in a very massive way, because there's no getting around the uncompromising honesty of justice, right? It is what it is, and it is a closed system. There's no jumping out of that in this form. So be able to tap into your true value and be loyal to that which deserves it, right? And the thing about dogs, I mean, if any, you've had dogs or do have dogs or just, very strong animal people. So Syrian starseeds, this is real big for you, or us, I should say, because the dog is, the freeloader of the universe, but really it's more like we've evolved concurrently with each other to really provide something that the other needs between humans and canines. And they are eternally loyal and faithful. And if you have a dog or you've ever had dogs in your life, you know exactly what that means. There's definitely different than cats. Cats don't have that same loyalty at all. They are much more in their own reality. And it's really, then you got the Lyran aspect that's so connected to the feline right now, at least for us. So I feel like that collectively, we really have to be mindful of this. And even if you don't resonate with this message like at all, be aware that this is probably going to be more relevant for people outside of you and in your life. And if you understand that, then you're even more prepared to not get pulled off track, to not have your life feeling like it's turned upside down, and to be someone that can actually assist and hold space and be an anchor for other people that may not be at the same place that you are. So, and Saturn and the moon, oh my gosh, it's really going to stabilize us today if we see it that way. So, and it also depends on whom you serve, right? If you are serving the master of the materialism, then it'll feel like being kind of a an automaton, right? That AI kind of soulless connection into the hive mind and being like, this is where we're going and there's nothing that's going to change it. So that it really does depend on whom you serve, right? We have to be very, very clear with ourselves about that. And sometimes people have such a strong and I can relate to this very personally. Sometimes we have such a strong aversion to the word or the concept of God because of the church and the history of the church and what it has actually acted on in terms of its own interests, that it serves to fragment us spiritually. when we can't, and I'm not suggesting that you should be monotheistic. It's not about that. It's about the fact that when we, it's easy to fragment and be fragmented. That way we don't have the same power to, that we actually do have as immortal spiritual beings in a material experience, which is why we came here. This is why we're here, is to have this type of experience and see if it's possible. It's a huge experiment. Is it possible to experience in material form and the lower densities our spiritual nature simultaneously? And I think we're doing a great job. But it's not easy, just like anything else, is not easy when you really, something major, something big, something momentous, takes a lot of, it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of fucking it up, right, to learn. And many of us have gone through so much trauma in our lifetimes, and now we see that it has really calibrated us for now to lead the whole collective through this process. So it's a very strong reading, and it's really meant to help us be realistic about what's happening, because that's the whole point of the adjustment card, is the realism versus the instinct. And again, that's the same thing, bringing our intuition and our conscious attention into alignment with each other. And we can't do that when we're fragmented, when we are serving the masters of somebody else. And it doesn't matter if we don't know. That's the problem that we're having, is that so many people are still under the spell. And many of us are unraveling spell after spell, not even realizing that we were under a spell. And this is consistent work. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. So let's look at the astrology, shall we? The astrology. And the 1111 portal is a big deal, as it is every year, because this is about this is about whole people and whole people coming together and activating. Again, a whole spiritual being and a whole material aspect coming together and activating. It's really important that we take to heart, again, yesterday with the Ark of the Covenant, the contract with our higher self is going to be really initiated again tomorrow. And right now we get an opportunity to really tap into our true power. But we have to be very, very mindful of what's being presented to us, and if we align with that or not. Ooh, my belly's grumbling. That's a good sign. It's time to eat soon. So I'm going to check in here with the chat. So let's see here. All right, guys, let's see. We're going to go into the astrology now. So our moon is in Aquarius, like I said. So let's look at some older transits here. Now, the sun is in a position in Scorpio that is, we're just going to read the Sabian symbol first, right? At 18 and 19 degrees Scorpio. And it's going to come into conjunction tomorrow on 11/11 with the fixed star Zubin Escamali, which we've talked about before, and I'll go over it again tomorrow as well. I'm going to link some resources about this fixed star for today, so you can do a little bit of research and some homework and see how it speaks to you. Because that does represent the drawing the curtains away and plunging ahead into the unknown. And the fact that that's going to be where the sun squares the moon in Aquarius is very important, that we are really aware of this. But today, this particular Sabian symbol is about the capacity to transmit transcendental knowledge. It's possible to become a channel, as we know, for transmission of a wisdom that transcends normal understanding, right? This is the very concept of channeling. Regardless of what you think about it, who channels and what you feel about it, this is about the capacity to do it, right? And people channel all kinds of things, and we have to, again, be very aware of who and what we are channeling, and be very discerning and discriminating about it. It's possible to become a channel for wisdom. That's wisdom that transcends our normal understanding, right? This is apparent repeats the conversation he has overheard. This, I cannot stress enough how important it is to really wrap ourselves around this, because the sun is our expression. It is our voice. It is how we find ourselves and how we express ourselves. So we're going to be very strongly wanting to, not only with Mercury and Mars being at this Draco activation point, right, which is about the quiet openness to inspiration, to really get in to that quiet, but then it's going to come right through this channel, right? We're going to channel it right through. And this is so powerful, right? Just like Barbara said, like reconnecting to like her power. This is so powerful, but we really need discrimination so that we balance out our faith with this over eagerness to channel this knowledge and this wisdom. It's going to come through very strongly, maybe even come through without us even having to do anything necessarily. So love is a cosmic undifferentiated principle, and where Mercury and Mars are at right now is the need for peace and a readiness to accept the illumination. We really need to be the calm lake. And this is very difficult with Mars involved, because there's no calmness with Mars. There's action with Mars. And especially in Scorpio, very strong. There's action. It wants to merge, the urge to merge, right? And it's very sexualized. Mars in Scorpio is a very sexualized masculine that is ready to merge, okay? A moment comes, though, when all that really matters is to be present, and to be a present, calm mind upon which the light of God may be reflected. Now, you can see that the full reversed is not, or the full being reversed is not the presence of a calm mind at all, or presence in this 0 point. It is something else. It is not this. So, and where are we going to find this? Well, let's go through it. We'll see where we can find the distortion here astrologically. So I would argue honestly that it's going to be Venus. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I feel like it's true, because she's on the warpath right now. That's the thing about Capricorn, is like you have to just put aside what you want and actually do the thing that is going to be the best for everybody in Capricorn, and take a sense of authority and responsibility. And she's on the warpath now. We are feeling it in our relationships. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't, what comes to mind with this is, the very recent approval from the CDC about kids and a certain type of medical intervention being approved now, right? I can really feel this this divine feminine, almost mother type of mama bear energy coming out right now. So I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that is going to be one of the biggest, that's going to be one of the biggest, I would say, influences on our calm openness right now to inspiration, is getting really very directly connected to like, all right, draw the line. This is the line that's been drawn in the sand, and now we're on the warpath, right? We're in that canoe, we're going. And there's when you start messing with people's families and their children and the value we place on those types of things, that is where people really start to activate. So that's a big part of it as well, is where Venus is today. So the moon in Aquarius, let's go back here in time, because we can do that with astrology. Isn't that convenient? We can do that. So the first thing we found very early this morning is that the moon came into a trine with Rahu, or the North Node, still sitting at that 1 to 2 degrees of Gemini. And just for clarification, some astrologers, they measure the mean, right, or the average of the nodes, because just like Black Moon Lilith, there's a wobble, right? There's a wobble. And so when you measure the true node, it's always kind of shifting back and forth in its larger transit. And its larger transit goes clockwise, while the rest of this wheel will go counterclockwise. So it's been sitting here 1 to 2 degrees of Gemini, right? The openness to, and the anticipation almost, right? Waiting in anticipation for what we're going to be brought in terms of information, in terms of what we're discovering, in terms of experience, exploration, all of the things that Gemini ultimately represents, right? The accumulation of information, data, experiences, ideas, concepts. So we're waiting very anxiously, very, like good little children, for Santa to come and fill our stockings, okay? And this is very much where we're being drawn collectively at a soul level in order to evolve. There's a certain amount of openness and awaiting that I think, again, there's that full reverse and the Virgo energy that is inverted in some ways, that we are, this is drawing us there, but it is something that we're having a really hard time. Now, the Aquarian trine, the moon in Aquarius, the 2nd degree of Aquarius is very simply an unexpected storm, right? And it's the need to develop the inner security that will enable us to meet an unexpected crisis, okay? And the reason this is referenced in Aquarius is because the material aspect that Capricorn represents is subject to time. It's subject to natural law. It's subject to decay and forces of nature that we don't have any control over. Aquarius is the energy that moves through the human collective, or the what connects us beyond just the material world, right? So when we are able, what we build as a collective, right? As a society, as humanity, as a full notion here, can be taken away by nature in a hot minute, right? We can think about this in a myriad of ways. Number one, we can think about the big solar flash, right? It could take away our entire society in an instant, right? Because it will take down the entire power grid and keep it down for who knows how long, right? This is total destruction of all of the infrastructure of our society, okay? From one solar flash. It could happen. It's very much could happen. Or the magnetic excursion, right? The magnetic shift that we're in the middle of right now, where the entire magnetic poles of the planet shift 90 degrees and take the crust of the planet with it, right? And that's a massive flood event. So these are just examples, but it can be unexpected in general. And it's the need to develop the inner security, which will enable us to meet an unexpected crisis. So when the moon comes into a trine with Rahu, right, this is a really important air trine. It's forming a base within us individually to be able to handle these crises, and to meet them with inner security. At the same time, linking us to her own nodal axis, the moon, of where we are going at a soul level, which is to remain open and to, accept the blessings, right? Even if they don't seem like it. And I think this is very much referencing that. It may not seem like it, but we have to stay open and realize that this is our soul's journey right now. It's taking us where we need to go. Despite the fact that we want to act on things and make them happen, there are a lot of forces that we have no control over, and that we have to, our attention and energy and our own intuition with the moon, right? How we feel, how we navigate the environment. We have to be able to meet these crises with inner security. This is a really important moment because the rest of the transits today are providing a lot of challenge. So then we have all of the, after this happens, this is overnight. So what were your dreams like, right? Because I have a feeling that there will be something that you see that's a stabilizing force in the midst of some sort of disruption. Seeing that and feeling that and having an intuitive sense of that in the moment. I know I did. So here we have now the conjunction with Mercury and Mars. And so traditionally, regardless of the sign you find these in, when these two come together, the potential for arguments, the potential for very forceful communication and expression, the potential for but also the potential to really get some shit done, right? To really get to a conclusion about something, or really just, this can be a very productive conjunction, right? Because Mars is an action. But where we, and the position that it's in, though, is almost the complete opposite of action. Calm mind, right? So there can be action in that way. So taking Mars and the action associated with Mars to find that calm mind, Mercury, is it's very strong, but the potential for it to get out of control or to really get very intensely engaged in arguments and interactions is also here. So again, the Draco, this is where we really could run into some issues, and people who are not working on their, it's not even about working on their shadow necessarily, just people who are not aware of the difference between themselves and maybe intrusion or old stuff or shadow stuff, right, coming to the surface, could easily be influenced. Again, calm mind, but also that's like an open book. Again, we have to be kind of protective as well. But this conjunction happens, right? And then from there is when the moon comes and meets Saturn, right? And they have this really intense square. So this is happening pretty much right now. It's happening right now, exactly. So the moon in Aquarius being very aloof, allowing us to be emotionally detached in a way that allows us to utilize the emotion, utilize the feeling without identifying with the feeling, because that is the mastery of Aquarius, is to be the water bearer, not the water in itself, because that's what Scorpio is. Scorpio is the water. Aquarius is the master of carrying the water. It's like the water pitcher, being able to hold it. And what holds it is a healthy and cohesive human collective. Or galactic collective, however you want to look at it. It is strong and has security in the bonds and not necessarily in the material realm. Of course, we dealt with that yesterday when the moon came and met up with Pluto, having a very distinct connection to what is being destroyed and taken away in terms of our reliance upon what has been in a material way. So that's been a very difficult transition for a lot of people, I feel like. So the inspiration that one may derive from the appearance of new archetypes is where Saturn has been sitting for a while now and is moving direct and has been. And so when the moon meets this point, we become we get right into the zone of it. And we have this capacity to intuitively connect to these new forms that are being revealed, but they're being revealed so much to our subconscious, not exactly to what is conscious, right? Because we're still talking about Scorpio. So it's all what's under the surface. And the moon is able to stabilize our ability to go under the surface and be able to encounter what new patterns and forms are coming forward in terms of the human collective, where we are going. And Saturn is just going to stabilize us even more. And in fact, it's going to be kind of like the anchor, or like the, I've never done any scuba diving or anything, but imagine the thing that's coming to mind is the old school diving, when you had that really big suit and you would be connected to some sort of tether. That's the feeling I keep getting, is that Saturn and the moon allowing us to have some sort of tether or some sort of stabilization while we start descending very much into the depths under the surface. And being able to see where we're going and being able to clearly identify it in our subconscious at the same time, though, as we are descending deeply under the surface. And this is where we could find ourselves really struggling, I think. I mean, we've talked about this so many times. So this square has the potential to really activate some serious growth and some serious metamorphosis within us if we lean into it, and really see it for a way to keep us in our lane, right? Instead of seeing it as, just rolling over because we're uncomfortable. That's a big part of these squares. They're not easy, but this is where we get the most. We get the most out of these squares and these oppositions in astrology. So then the moon does this, which is happening like right now. And then what it does is that it makes another trine over to Gemini, but this time with asteroid Ceres over in Gemini. And she is really holding a position in terms of what we think and what we know, what we think we know, concepts, ideas, our immediate environment, all of the Gemini, and our ability to use our mind to really penetrate our ego into something beyond that. It's a quiver filled with arrows. That's the Sabian symbol of where Ceres, asteroid Ceres, the goddess of the grain. It is the function of Gaia that she represents, the seasonal growth and the nourishment that is provided by the cycles of nature, and the necessity for us to follow the natural cycle of progression that is expansion and growth and contraction and stillness, right? This is a part of our growing cycle. So she's still retrograde right now. So we're still kind of like internalizing a lot of these types of this type of energy, but it's very much has all of the means to get to the point and get to the heart of the matter right now in terms of a natural progression. This trine with the moon in Aquarius in this moment is, we can start acting out the vision that we just had with the square between Saturn and Mercury/Mars in Scorpio. Now we can kind of act it out, right? We can incorporate these new social values that maybe we are actually able to see for the first time, or feel into, or think about, or even and act on with Mars. These new social values, if we are able to hold the spiritual potential and the greatest significance of these values, right? This is why, again, it's really important that we are in line with ourselves and being very aware of whom we serve, right? Because we can't afford to allow the Draco influence to manipulate us right now. And it's a very strong potential. And again, Saturn is very able to stabilize us. So the moon in Aquarius at this moment here in this trine is really, we can act out the vision because we have like a natural, a natural connection to the earth, and that's providing all of the weaponry, right? It is the means to get to the heart of things, is coming from the earth grid herself. Okay, this is where it's coming from. And the trine, right? It's an air trine, so we know it's about our intellect, it's about our minds, it's about the higher mind with Aquarius in particular, and being able to see very clearly to get to the heart of things. And it will require that we, again, connect into the planetary grid and not rely on the external influences that are really meant to shape and direct our attention for whatever reason. We have to be very much plugged into the natural grid of the planet if we want to successfully act out this vision, at least within ourselves, right? Because this is the moon in Aquarius, to be able to feel what that feels like. Because right from here is when the moon comes into a sextile with Chiron, and this is an incredible healing potential, just like they all are with Chiron. But this is going to be a very difficult moment. We have to be very mature about this, and to not be so hard on ourselves if we find ourselves really struggling with this, because this particular degree of Aquarius is about becoming aware, that we're just people, and to not project our own ideals or anything else onto people as if they are screens, right? And that's happening a lot. This is about when you believe, you generally, me, whatever, become the embodiment of some sort of popular ideal, right? When you become an avatar of something, and then you come to realize that you're just a person and you actually don't fulfill this ideal at all, because nobody can actually do that when we're in our humanity, because we are fallible and we are human and we make mistakes. There's something very freeing about this. And it's only when we can take this realization in our very, in our very feeling and our very intuition, and we can invest this into this process of letting go of what we have identified ourselves as, and seeing it as stepping into a wider and new symbolic representation. And it's going to be very triggering, right? Especially if you have to be very humbled. and we're all going to deal with this in a different way. And to be humbled and to realize that you're not the ideal that you felt like you were embodied as. And this is something that, because it's the moon, we're all going to like feel into this. But again, the reconciliation that comes with a sextile, or that 60-degree angle, is our ability, when we can invest these two seemingly opposed aspects, or in this case with Aries and Aquarius, these are completely different aspects, because Aries is the function of our own ego and our impulse to be, and Aquarius is the collective and the higher consciousness. So we can have, this is an incredible opportunity today, but it will come from a serious humbling of ourselves, especially if we have to realize that we're just a human being and we actually aren't the embodiment of a popular ideal. And stop projecting onto other people all of these ideal holographic images, and just meet people from where they are. Again, we can actually heal the wounding and the triggering of this wound, that if we let go of what we think we've been, who are we, right? We just dissolve away. This is like permission to be a human, a fallible human, but a sovereign human. But it's going to require that we actually participate in this process. It's not a trine, it is a sextile, which means we have to actually do some magic here, or participate in the reconciliation. But once we do, the sky's the limit at that point, right? We can go in any direction after this type of harmonious connection. This is very important, because from here, then we have the moon in Aquarius is going to square Uranus in Taurus. So this is not a mutual reception directly, meaning that each object is in the other's home sign, but it's very close, because the moon is exalted in Taurus. And when we say exalted, we mean that it's in territory, that it's just as powerful. If, it's not its home territory, but it's still very powerful. And I had a colleague one time mention it in this way that I really liked. And he said that it's like the royal aspect of that object or planet is in a foreign land, but it's still being treated as royalty or as a leader, but it's in a different place, right? So that's what exalted means. So the moon is exalted in Taurus, but Uranus is at home in Aquarius. And the square, if we can see the mutual connection here, it will really help, because where the moon is really allowing us to be a barometer, like our own feelings to be a barometer for what is going to happen. And what does a barometer do? It measures the change in pressure and air pressure. And when there's a change in air pressure, we can reasonably assume there's going to be a change in the weather. This is one of the tools of meteorology, is a barometer. So we're really feeling into what to expect, how there's going to be a change in the weather, right? Change in the circumstances that then change the overall experience. And we have the capacity to really utilize our own intuition to be that barometer, because we're plugged into the whole fractal, right? And not just the fractal itself, but like the energy that moves through that fractal of our reality, right? The unfolding fractal geometry. So we're plugged into it and we can feel the changes. And when we can feel the changes, we can reasonably expect or predict, right? Forecast what's going to happen. The square here is that when you're talking about Taurus, especially in this part of Taurus, we are not expecting anything to happen necessarily, other than if we are still accumulating and wanting to accumulate as the result of our social ambition, whatever that is. And that's a normal part of being in a material form. We want to acquire material assets that allow us to be safe and comfortable, right? Taurus, this is about the fertility of life and the space in which we grow. We want that to be healthy. We want it to be clean. We want it to be secure. We want the soil to be full and dense and healthy. This is all the Taurus type of symbols here. But there's a natural desire to accumulate, and there's baggage that's attached to that. So Uranus in its retrograde, so we're all kind of going through this crisis within ourselves, like upheaval all the time of this ambition and the reality that there is baggage attached, and we can't go through the wormhole or the stargate of cosmic consciousness while we are accumulating baggage of material form. And we have to really reconcile this. And the square to the moon in Aquarius, I think, is actually going to help us reconcile this, because we can feel into what to expect at a personal level if we are more focused on the acquisition of material security. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't want these things, that we should or shouldn't isn't factored into this equation. What it is doing is, with Uranus involved, we are really going through the process of questioning what it is that is worth it. You know, can we hold this baggage as we go through this ascension process? And that's something we're still dealing with, and we're all kind of internally dealing with it. So when it does move direct later over this point, it'll be something that just is disrupted in our very material reality. Right now, it's something that we are being led to question. And this moon in Aquarius, as much as this square is going to be another fixed square, right? Those cross purposes, the fact that they're almost a mutual reception, if we can make a connection between the two, right? If the moon in Aquarius is like, well, you know, I can give you my, give to Aquarius, look, we can exchange. It's like an exchange thing, exchanging of energy or exchanging of reference point or some sort of exchange where, you know, we can reasonably expect what it's going to be like, and we can feel that out when it comes to the baggage that we're accumulating in terms of material comfort and security. And that could very well be one way to look at this as in a social, in a larger context right now, is the people giving away their autonomy and their freedom. You know, Aquarius really is about true freedom. And true freedom can only come from a collection of fully sovereign individuals who are choosing to be in alignment with the highest good and with the light. This square here is an opportunity to see very much so what to expect when we give up our freedom for a sense of security, because the baggage we will not be able to hold the baggage or afford the baggage when we go through this, you know, as we go through this awakening process. And so this square, as uncomfortable as it is, it's going to be very telling, and we will feel it right down into the core of who we are, what that's going to look like in the future. Because that's the other thing about Aquarius, right? There's no time and space here as there is in Capricorn, right? Because that is time, space, or space-time. Aquarius is outside of that. So you can see into the future. You can see into the past. You can see multidimensionally with Aquarius, because it's everything. It's the energy that moves through all life. So expectable conditions that we can have a direct feeling into with this square. And this is something by the end of the day. And we really need this, because when we go into the 11/11 portal and we have this sun squaring the Aquarian moon, with another fixed square, we're going to have to really contend with, again, the discomfort and the friction that comes from a intuitive knowing and an intuitive message from somewhere that's going to give us, a sense that we're on the right track, that we're being given, the white dove, right? It's coming, land is near, or whatever, right? Peace and hope and prosperity is near. But we are finding our expression by plunging ahead into the unknown. And that is going to, how do we reconcile those things is really going to make a big difference in how we walk through this portal tomorrow, today into tomorrow. So today is such an important day. It's almost more, in my opinion, it's almost more important than what the 1111 portal represents. Because if we don't prepare ourselves properly at this moment, then what we take with us into that portal, Uranus, we can't afford the baggage. And so it's going to weigh us down through that process. And this is not new. It's just, I'm just showing you that this is completely coded into the cosmological clock. So we're right on time here. So I'm gonna leave it at that, my friends. I think that is plenty to work with today, and we'll be in touch tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for engaging in the process. Thank you for your subscriptions, through your likes. It really helps me stay on task, of course, but I'm just really proud of everybody for really staying on it and being so committed to this process, especially as an identified starseed or as a light worker, because it's not, we volunteered for a very specific and very difficult job, just like Frodo, was essentially forced into volunteering to do the hardest thing that anybody had to do. So thank you. We need all of us on deck right now. So thank you. And I appreciate all of you so much. So we'll be together tomorrow for the transmission. If you're interested in a reading or in any kind of energetic support for your process, you can book through Catalyst Energies. That's in the description box below. You can also get on my mailing list. The next real big focus is going to be the report on the eclipse season. So there will be a reading sale that's going to be incorporated into that. So if you're interested in seeing how eclipse season is going to impact you in your chart, then just kind of put a pin in that, because there'll be some information coming very, very soon. And of course, social media is where you can stay connected as well. And I'm going to be dropping some links to some stuff today, just fixed star stuff, and really getting us kind of up to speed and just kind of prepared for walking through the 1111 portal, right? Which is a communion. It really is a communion with our higher self and our divine mission, and coming to terms with our contract. So this happens every year, 1111. It's not a new thing. So just like the Lion's Gate, we have opportunities every year to come back around. It's just that the cycles are influenced in different ways right now. And so we just want to make sure that what we engage with in our quiet openness to inspiration is our own inspiration, and not something that's put into that space to influence us to act out of accordance with our own higher self and natural law, which is, essentially what's been happening for a really long time. This needs to end. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you. We will be together tomorrow for the Daily Medicine transmission. Have a great day.